It's just me against the world.
The man you see here is a common philosophy undergraduate student. Look at him, all stressed out by school. Really, the life of a student is simple. This is an account of the quest for knowledge. What is knowledge, anyways? How do you define it? These are the topics discussed in Plato's Theaetetus. Plato begins by addressing the idea of flux. The idea of flux rests on Protagoras' secret doctrine that human beliefs are infallible. It follows that knowledge is perception, and only perception. This is the view that Theaetetus maintains throughout the dialogue. There are two levels of flux, moderate and extreme. Let's start by examining moderate flux. It follows from the secret doctrine that properties of objects are constantly changing. If knowledge is perception, then the properties of objects can be reduced to our perceptions of them. Since our perceptions are constantly changing, and we will never have the exact same one twice, it follows that the properties of objects are constantly changing, or as Socrates describes, in a constant state of motion. To say that an object is a certain way is incorrect according to moderate flux. It is more appropriate to use the terms such as coming to be and passing away, or simply changing, when talking about the properties of an object. The more radical version of flux is extreme flux. In this view, not only are properties of objects constantly changing, but so is the substance that makes up the object. For example, when you run water over your hand, not only are the properties of the water constantly changing, but the water itself is constantly changing, so that the same water never touches your hand twice. There are constant changes occurring at the fundamental level to all substances, even to your hand. From a scientific point of view, this is correct. The cells that make up your hand are in constant activity and motion. Of course, Plato had no conception of cells, but it is helpful to talk about them when explaining the phenomenon of extreme flux. Where do perceptions come from? Plato says they originate when active motion meets passive motion. In short, active motion represents our physical environment, and passive motion represents the perceiver. From a metaphysical point of view, perceptions exist somewhere between the perceiver and the things being perceived. The implication of this theory is the complete rejection of perceptual realism. In other words, every specific property is specific to each perceiver. Protagoras' secret doctrine that human beliefs are infallible comes with quite a few objections, and at the end of the Theaetetus, Plato concludes that it must be rejected. Let's take a look at these objections. Number 1. The argument from illusion, or the dream argument, is that when you are dreaming, you can have just as vivid of an experience as when you are awake. So how can you be certain that you are not dreaming at any given time? It cannot be that the things you perceive while you are dreaming can be considered knowledge. Number 2. According to the secret doctrine, human belief is the measure of all knowledge. But doesn't this seem a bit arbitrary? Socrates asked Theaetetus why the measure of knowledge could not be the perceptions of baboons rather than humans, for an example. Number 3. If the secret doctrine is true, then there's no need for philosophy, because each one of us is a true judge of the way things are. Of course, Plato does not accept this implication. Number 4. If knowledge is perception, then when I hear Russian being spoken, then I know Russian, even though I don't understand it. So perception cannot just mean immediate sensations of the world. We would have to expand the notion of perception in this case, but this just allows for too much room for falsehood. Number 5. When you look at me, you know me. When you close your eyes, you don't know me anymore, because you're not perceiving me anymore. When you open your eyes again, you're perceiving me again. You know me again? This one speaks for itself, guys. It just doesn't make sense. Similarly, if you know things only when you perceive them, then you can't know things when you remember them. Okay, Okay, so these 5 objections all hint at the same thing, and that is Socrates' refutation of the secret doctrine. Socrates says that perception has no share in grasping of truth, because it has no share in grasping of being. So knowledge must be something different than perception. So not all human beliefs are true. There can be false beliefs, because some beliefs are better than others, and that they are closer to the truth. The conclusion of the Theaetetus is that knowledge cannot be perception. What knowledge is true thinking, and ignorance is false judgment. So there you have it, the Theaetetus in a nutshell. Knowledge is not perception, it is true thinking. How do we arrive at true thinking? Well, it's not as glamorous as it sounds. Just take a look for yourselves.
Proceed with Phoebus, scheme on a scheme and lead that beast.